Hello, part two of the router table build here. In this video, we're going to be getting the fence built. We're going to get all the drawers put in, got plenty of storage for all my router bits, as well as cross flow drawer here to clear all the dust out of that router section in there. It is held on with magnets. Got my miter gauge all in here, the plates for the router lift table. That bottom drawer actually isn't a drawer. It is my crosscut sled for the table saw here. It's going to be really nice having it being stored right here next to the table saw so I don't have to lug it around. If this is something you're interested in, please stick around and watch the video. Let's get into it.
I'm going to start here by just getting the dust collection port attached to the back side of the router table. Once we got that on, then we're just going to get the main power on and off switch hooked on. Decided to put it over here on the side, hidden down underneath the top. Ended up working out great. Do have to apologize a little bit for this drawer slide installation here. There was no way to get a good shot of me putting these in. I really should have put these drawer slides in before I put that top on. It was really difficult to get in there and get all these things installed. Ended up cutting my arms pretty bad. There's no good way to shoot it, so unfortunately, look at that, they're all installed. Every video I've made now, I've showed myself making drawers, and it's getting a little old. I think I'm just going to make a video of the 3 different ways that I make drawers and put a link whenever I show myself making drawers. Now we got the drawer faces all laid out here as well. Here I'm going to be cutting the mounting material that I'll be using to install the center drawer face where the dust collection port's going to be. Now we're just going to cut it all to size on the miter saw. When I'm cutting small pieces like this, I do like to use just a spare piece of scrap to use this stop block so I can get everything the same length. Works out really well. Once we've got those pieces all cut up, we can come over and get them installed into the actual table itself here. I'm going to use a scrap piece of 18mm ply to get them all spaced back correctly so that the drawer face will end up being flush with the front of the table when we get them all installed. You can see here using that scrap piece just to get everything spaced correctly. Then we're going to use the Forstner bits to get the hole drilled to install those magnets. Started off using a brad point bit. It wasn't working good. I really would prefer to use the Forstner bits on those. Here I'm drilling the matching holes in the frame for the magnets as well so that that front drawer face can attach. Just going to use some CA glue to get those magnets glued into this frame here. Once you get those magnets glued in, it is really important to start checking the polarity of those magnets before you glue them in the attaching piece. I can't say how many times in the past when I've used magnets that I've somehow gotten them flipped around and then they repel each other instead of pull each other towards each other. It makes it a huge pain in the butt. So once you get the first set of magnets put in there, always grab the other magnets, grab a Sharpie marker and start marking them so you know which way you want to put them together. Because once you glue them in there, man, it's a bummer if you got them in backwards. Now we can put them in the face frame, then we can cut some holes in there and test and see how it's going to work out. I was a little nervous that there wasn't going to have enough suction with my dust collection system to clear this area. It seemed like a rather large space to be trying to clear. It's working out amazing. I'm really happy with it. Here we're drilling 5'1¼ holes evenly spaced across the bottom edge of that drawer face where the dust port's going to go. This ended up being just the right amount of holes for the crossflow area to work great. Now I'm going to throw a handful of sawdust in here and give it a little test. Put the face on. Sweet, it's all gone. Here I got all the drawer faces and drawer handles test fitted on just to make sure everything lines up right, get them all spaced evenly. Looking slick. I have a strange feeling this is about to turn into a convoluted mess of me trying to explain how I made this fence assembly. I'm going to start by cutting a 18mm rabbet into the sub fence of this assembly. This is going to rest on the base that we're going to have. That's the base right there. So that little rabbet that we cut out will rest right in there. And that's the actual face frame itself that we laminated up in the last video. We're going to have to do quite a few cuts to this face piece assembly to get it to all work together correctly. Going to start by making a really shallow cut in the face of that laminate, just to cut the laminate to keep all the edges crisp. This is where the T-track is going to go for the featherboard to slide in on the top of the fence. If you make just a real shallow cut and cut that laminate, it makes real clean cut. If you try to cut too deep, you're going to blow out the edges all on it. So once we got that cut, then we can cut the final depth of the T-track that we're going to install in there. Ended up fitting perfect. Now we're going to cut the dado in the sub fence for where another piece of T-track is going to go. This is where the adjustable fence part is going to be. Now we're going to cut the matching dado in the actual fence itself. We're going to bump that fence over just a little bit so that we can keep the adjustable parts of the fence just barely up off the tabletop. See here, now this is going to fit together like that. Want to take just over half the depth of the actual thickness of that T-track. You can see there in that picture, so that we can get everything to slide but also lock down nice and tight when we want to secure it. Now I'm going to cut that top portion of the actual fence itself off. Going to make a shallow pass first, then we'll raise the blade up and cut that piece in two. This will hopefully all make sense a little bit later on here down the road. This is going to separate the parts that are going to adjust from the top piece that is going to hold the T-track. Now we can cut the adjustable part of that fence in half. You can see there it's where the T-track is going to go on the top for the featherboard, and now we can get those adjustable pieces in here. Now we need to cut some sort of notch out of the middle of the sub fence as well as the base for the dust collection port to be able to collect the dust from where the router bit is. Ended up just lining everything up, clamping them together, and then just cutting that hole out with the jigsaw. Now I'm going to glue the top part of the fence onto the sub fence. Ended up using just a one playing card spacer in between the adjustable part of the fence and that stationary top part of the fence, just to get it spaced out just a little bit. Don't want them touching, but don't want a big gap there either. So one playing card was a good fit. And get it all clamped together. Once that glue all dries, then we can take it over to the router table, use a flush trim bit just to get everything nice and square and clean on the top. Now we're going to install the T-track that's going in the adjustable part of the fence. Then we can attach that to the sub fence once we drill the holes in it. Now we're going to drill the holes in the sub fence. Hopefully this will start making sense on how it all goes together here. So now we just using 1/4 20 bolts to hold that T-track together through the back of that sub fence, and then those knobs can loosen and tighten that T-track to let that actual adjustable fence move. I'm just going to round the corners off on everything just to give it a nice feel. Now we can attach the T-track. This is where the featherboard will be able to attach on the fence. Now we're cutting up all the brace pieces that are going to go along the back side of the fence to keep it all square. Going to end up cutting some 1/4 inch grooves in 2 of those pieces that will be in the center to put a 1/4 inch piece of ply in there for the dust collection port. Now just cutting the corners off all of them just to make it look a little cleaner. Here I'm cutting up the pieces that I'm going to use to laminate all together to make the dust collection port that's going to go in the middle. I went back and forth on how I wanted to do this. I actually bought an actual port from PowerTech. It was kind of a piece of junk. I didn't really want to use it. So I ended up making my own here. I could have just capped the thing off, but it would have been kind of cheesy. So I just went with laminating a big huge hunk together here. Just clamped it all down, let it dry, then we can drill a 1.5 inch hole through it for the dust port to attach to. Now we're marking it all out where we need to cut it to get it to fit into that brace piece that's going to go in the middle where the dust collection is. Okay, now we need to drill a hole through the middle of it. Just use an 1.5 inch Forstner bit to drill this hole. Hey, that looks kind of sketchy, man. I don't know about that. No, that's a little better. That's not so bad. Now, how you gonna make this cut, dude? No, you can't do that. Hey, no, stop. Don't do that. Yeah, no. No, you can't do that. You can't cut it that way.
Getting fingers close.
No, don't do that, man. Hey, no, that's not a good idea either. That's not gonna work. It's still just gonna twist. Doesn't matter how you put it in there. No, dude, seriously, man. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't, you're gonna cut your fingers off, man. Come on, go use the bandsaw. No, don't do that.
We just go cut this on the bandsaw. Yes.
Seriously though, anytime something doesn't feel safe, just take a break, take a step back and rethink what you're doing. There's always a different way to make a cut or do what you're trying to do. Don't do something that doesn't feel safe. If it doesn't feel safe, it isn't. Stop. Take a step back, think about what you're doing, do it a safer way. It's starting to look like a fence here. Now we're going to get it all glued up. Put some glue in that rabbet that we cut earlier. Now we can get all the corner clamps in there, get it all square, and get it all glued up. Ended up using a lot of clamps on that trying to keep it square while I was doing it. Now we're going to glue the dust collection port all together. Then we can get those brace pieces installed into the fence once it all dries. I'm going to countersink some holes into the fence where those brace pieces are going to go. And then get all those brace pieces installed. Just checking to make sure everything's still square. And get the center port installed as well. Now I got to drill out the hole for that 1/4 inch sheet of ply was blocking it at the bottom. And now I'm going to use some sheet metal screws to install a plastic piece into some wood. Haters gonna hate. Here I am laminating up the locking pieces that are going to attach to each end of the fence. These are going to clamp the fence down to the top itself on the edge banding. I'm going to drill a hole through the whole thing once I get it all clamped together. Had a little scrap piece on the bottom there just so I didn't blow out the bottom of the clamp. Then we can put a bolt through it and then put the securing knob on the top. And once the fence is clamped down, it's nice and square. Lastly, we're going to finish up that bottom shelf area on the table where the crosscut sled's going to go. Going to cut out some brace pieces here that we're going to secure to the bottom. They're about 5/8 of an inch short of that edge on that front stretcher. That is going to let me make the bottom drawer area out of 5/8 Baltic birch here. That'll slip right down in there and just sit flush with the bottom. Went back and forth on how I wanted to do this, decided to just put some 1/2 inch MDF in here. I didn't want the crosscut sled to just be resting on those miter rails. I figured it might warp over time. So I figured if I made a little area for it here to slide in with those miter rails not touching, so it would just rest on the entire bottom of the crosscut sled, that it wouldn't warp over time. I decided I just wanted to keep this video about the build process of the router table, so I didn't include the actual build of the crosscut sled itself. I may make a video about that at another time. I did get this drawer crosscut sled idea from Jer Schmidt at Jer's Woodshop. Now that we got it all done, it's time to take it all back apart so we can do some sanding. Yay! Not much to sand on this project though, so it went pretty quickly. Now we're going to put the finish on. I'm using the boiled linseed oil just like I have on all the other projects that I've made for the shop. Just a couple coats of linseed oil, let those dry for about 12 hours between each coat, then put a nice paste wax on them to make them nice and smooth. Also put that boiled linseed oil around that edge banding of maple going around the perimeter of the table. Now we can get it put all back together. It's looking good. Fits nice and perfect underneath that extension wing of my table saw. Probably going to make a couple test cuts with it here now to show you how it works. All these cuts are being made by a 3/8 inch roundover bit. I was really happy with how good the dust collection's working on it.
Well, that's all I got on my router table here. Would like to once again thank Jared Schmidt for the idea for the drawer crosscut sled thing. Jared's YouTube channel is Jared's Woodshop, I believe it is. Amazing channel. Check it out. Super cool. Really happy with how it came out. This is going to work great for me. I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable having a good amount of area for doing template routing. It's going to be awesome. Would like to thank everybody very much for watching, and I hope everybody has a great day.